I think the unfortunate thing is most of us, probably as men, we just go hard all the time, and we don't prioritize our health. We don't prioritize our rest. And then eventually it catches up to us, and we end up where Brandon was, which I've been there many a times. I was the same way going into the holidays. I was like, I'm cooked, we had 2 weeks off, and I was so grateful. Like, God, man, we just went so hard. Like, I need this couple weeks. And then I recovered, and then now we're back at it. It's a new year, and then we're going into Easter for us. It's like, okay, pick it up. Let's go hard again, and then a rest season will come. So I think, though, doing better at building the healthy rhythms into whatever season we're in is, for me, like something I have to think about, as you said. Like, I have to prioritize that. You're listening to Men of Faith, the podcast dedicated to calling men up and not out. Join me as we live a life dedicated to our God. Welcome back to the Men of Faith podcast. I'm your host, Caleb Cole, and I'm here once again with my co-host, Brandon Miller. Brandon, what's up?
Hello.
You're looking good, man. He's very happy because the Eagles won the Super Bowl yesterday, and Brandon is an Eagles fan, so.
That is correct.
Congrats, man.
Thank you.
I didn't care about who won. I almost didn't watch it, but I did. And we have with us a guest and also one of our staff members here at Project Church. This is Antonio Reyes.
There you go.
Antonio, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Same here. Don't care about the Super Bowl, but I did watch it. I was very intrigued by the halftime show, but anyways, it was fun to watch. Like I said, my name is Antonio Reyes. I love how you roll your R's. Reyes.
I can get those R's going.
There you
man.
go. I love it. Yeah, it's been a journey to arrive in this place. Being part of the project team and helping leading one of the campuses and you know, trying to move forward with also with the Spanish community as well. I'm a Mexican. I grew up 18 years of my life in Mexico, and so I moved when I was 18 over here, and since then, I mean, it's been great. Yeah, journey.
So we thought it'd be cool to have Antonio on today. He's been with us at Project Church now for 4 months, I believe. And he's leading our South Sac campus, getting ready to launch a Spanish service over there. And so building a Spanish community and hoping to reach that South Sacramento Spanish-speaking community, which is cool. But I know you're in a new season. And so that's what we want to talk about today, this idea of new seasons and even just changing of seasons. Obviously, we're still in winter right now, but pretty soon, I'm already noticing, the weather's changing a little bit.
Yep.
Pretty soon the season will change and we'll be stepping into the spring season. And so just like in our world, in nature, seasons change. In our lives as men, seasons change. And that's what we want to talk to you about today, guys, is just how we navigate changing seasons. And I thought it'd be good to just start with a verse that really talks about this. In Ecclesiastes 3, it says, there's a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens. Time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant, a time to uproot, a time to kill, and a time to heal, a time to tear down, a time to build, a time to weep, and a time to laugh, a time to mourn, a time to dance, a time to scatter stones, a time to gather them. It goes on and on. There's all these different seasons that we walk through. And I think as men, we recognize that the longer we live, the more it feels like we're changing seasons. And so I thought it'd be good if today we just talk a little bit about changing seasons and new seasons. Obviously, like Antonio and I, we are in a season now coming together. So even this is a season of us getting to know each other. Brandon, we've known each other longer. You've been on this earth a little longer than me, and so you've seen more changing seasons. And so as we talk about seasons, like what comes to your guys' minds, just in general?
Yeah, you know, when we're walking with God, it is inevitable that the call up, as we describe it, for men of faith, He's constantly going to call you to new opportunities in the form of challenges. You're going to be faced with opportunities to grow And in those seasons of growth, that's going to require us to recognize what I did that got me to where I am is not what I'm going to do to get me to where I'm going.
Yeah.
And that willingness to understand that the change within each one of us is, all right, that has concluded. That time space has concluded. I either passed what I was supposed to pass to get on to the next, or I'm about to repeat something else.
Yep.
But that earmarking or understanding those times and changing parts of our lives. And then there's the natural, right? The season in a marriage where, hey, we're going through some kind of growth phase together, or with children, I'm in the younger phase, or teenage, or adult, whatever that is. Everything in life is going to go through some sort of shifting as we grow.
Yeah, no, I to echo what he's saying, I think part of when I think about new seasons is that maybe the seasons that are coming up for us, maybe they have a piece of uncertainty, but that doesn't mean that we cannot prepare ourselves for new seasons. And I think there's an important factor that we can actually prepare ourselves, prepare our heart, skillful, whatever it is, we can actually prepare ourselves to enter new seasons. Because the worst thing that can happen is that you enter a new season and you're not ready to sustain or engage with a new opportunity that comes your way.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things that I've been trying to process probably in the last couple of years. How do I prepare myself for new opportunities that come my way and new seasons in my life? Because I want to be able to approach them correctly or the best of my ability, so I don't mess them up, because that will be very detrimental to engage in the new seasons.
Yeah. If we're not ready. And yet, I think there's probably, the guys that are listening right now or watching, they've gone through different seasons of life. They may be entering into a brand new season right now. And maybe they're listening going, well, how do I prepare myself? Especially because sometimes seasons are unknown, right? Like, before you know it, boom, I'm in a new season. I didn't even know that season was coming. When we look at nature, we know the seasons are coming. We know there's winter, there's spring, there's summer, and then there's fall. And it repeats and it repeats. And yet in life, it's not always that cut and dry. It's not always that, every 3 months we know the season that's coming because we've experienced that season year after year. So what do you guys encourage guys as they're listening? What would you say to guys that are like, man, I find myself in a season I was not ready for, or I didn't anticipate, I didn't see coming? How would you encourage them to adjust? Because I get the preparation. You guys both talked about it, and I know I've always tried to be prepared for new seasons that I saw coming. I'm about to put all the coats away and get ready with the lighter jackets. They go into the thick jackets go into storage. That's the preparation. But what about the seasons that you don't anticipate coming? And maybe you've experienced that, both of you. And what did you do as you boom, you were thrust into the new season? How do I adapt in the moment?
Yeah. For me, if I can jump in real quick, I think when I find myself in seasons that I was not ready, or I was not preparing for it. One of the things that to me is important is I do what I know is right, meaning I do what I lean into what Scripture says. Like, I'm gonna do that for right now. I'm gonna be consistent. I'm gonna be faithful to that. I'm gonna allow that to ground me, because at the end of the day, everything around me can be changing and can be. I might not have the control of it, but I know if I'm grounded and I practice what I know is right, it's gonna give fruit in some sort of way, right? And so to me, when I do find myself several times I have found myself in places like that, all I tell myself, Antonio, do what is right. Just be consistent, have integrity with that, and just be attentive to those moments, so that maybe everything else is out of your control. But this right here, be consistent with your faith, be consistent in your spiritual practices, be consistent in what you know is bringing health to your own soul. So that has been helpful in seasons like that.
Oh, that's good. What I hear is discipline is always the best preparation.
Mm-hmm.
Like the daily disciplines. And as a follower of Christ, which we're encouraging these men to be men of faith, is that we would have the daily disciplines of spiritual formation, of spiritual practices, of spiritual connection with the Lord. And that even if a season comes that you're not ready for, if you've done that, you have prepared yourself to a level.
That's right.
So that you can at least stay healthy in a season you didn't see coming, something that was unanticipated, or like you said, outside of your control. What about for you, Brandon?
I think if we follow the path of what God does in our life, we look back. Sometimes the best teacher for what's coming is where we've been. So if I can see how God seems to lead me through seasons, everything He is speaking through the ministry of the Word at church, or speaking through our own personal reflection, prayer time, journaling, whatever it is, it's always getting us ready for there. It's always for there. And then it clicks. I'm in this season. That's why you had me reading that book.
Yeah.
That's why I was mending that fence in that relationship. That's why I was storing that money away. You knew my car was going to break and I was going to go through a tough season where I had to have some cash to handle a situation. And so I find that one of the most important things in being in business, I'll tell you, one of the things you realize more than anything else in business, and you know this in ministry, is we are competing for people's attention.
Yep.
It's the most expensive commodity on earth, and it is the one most invested in, is capturing people's attention. Well, what we have to know is God is constantly working to get ours, constantly. And what I've learned in seasons is that He's heightening my either awareness of my need for Him, my awareness of my love for Him, or, my awareness of now I'm walking with Him. I'm growing in intimacy. Like, I have been able to track what I see Him doing and knowing that ultimately where He's leading me is good, even if what's hard isn't easy.
That's a challenge, I think, for us. Is what I heard was like obedience and trust, which obviously we know we always need to be walking in obedience and we need to trust in God. But how many of us trust in ourselves? And the idea that like attention or our time is the greatest commodity. I mean, I even think about the Super Bowl yesterday, and I saw the stat that it was $8 million for a 30-second commercial. Like, think about that, just to get people's attention. And they saw that investment as worth it. That if I invest $8 million, it will pay off in more than that, right? The dividend of that investment was more with what I'm going to get in terms of the attention of the American people and beyond. Obviously, now I think they said it's broadcast in 186 countries yesterday. And so that idea that God is still vying for our attention, and it is so important that we give it to Him, because if He has our attention, then whatever season we're walking into, we will be prepared. Now, we may not feel fully prepared. I know I've walked into new seasons and not felt fully prepared. I know when we launched this church 12 years ago, like, I was not fully prepared. I had done a lot of preparation. I had done the things I knew to do, but then I stepped into this season that I knew God was calling me to, and there were a lot of unanticipated challenges that I'm like, no one trained me for this. No one prepared me for this. And it made me more reliant and trusting in God. And so I think that's my next question for you guys is like, how do we increase our trust or our reliance in a season we've never been in a season that is challenging, in a season that is new, and maybe we don't feel like I'm not prepared for this?
Yeah, one of the seasons that I find the hardest is a season of rest. And it's the ability to recognize that I'm ceasing from striving because that's a default position for me, is to strive, to push, to want to grow. And in those times, recognizing that this season has to be in place to get me to where I'm going to need to put a lot out in the next one. And so in that opportunity, I find if I'm trying to stay tuned in no matter what, and maybe your guys' experience with how God talks to you, right? But how I'm receiving messages and being clear on, oh, this is why this is where we are now, and this is what's coming next. I'm in a place in those seasons where I need to be asking, what are you getting me ready for? What am I resting for? What am I resting from, and what am I resting toward? And so that ability to be sensitive, to be aware of where we're going. You were talking about the commercials. I was thinking, man, do you know how much science goes into how to, not only the $8 million they spent to have the spot, but the science to know what's going to grab people's attention, what colors, what words, what tone, what posture, what imagery is going to work. And I find in our seasons that he's using every resource available to him to pull us close, right? To pull us close, to say, hey, here's where we are and here's where I need you to be thinking.
Yeah, so interesting. Right now, when you were talking about the same thing, I was thinking about Dr. Dallas Willard. He says that the biggest threat against our spirituality is hurry and distraction. And I just think about how distracted we are, in seasons of, and if the seasons of change, we are distracted. One of the biggest things that we need to do is be attentive and be intentional. And what are we investing ourselves into? I mean, talking about right now, the question you were asking, I think about my own journey. What do I do? How do I navigate those moments? And I think that I honestly try to really surround myself with voices that can help me keep me grounded, but also can help me guide me in seasons where I've never been before. Like in preparation, like you said, I never feel prepared to be a pastor. Like It doesn't matter how much preparation, books, conversations I have, I never feel ready. But the beauty is having voices like yourself, other mentors that can help me guide me through things that I haven't been before has been very helpful and insightful, because I can grab from the experience of others and withdraw from that that I might not be able to do on my own. I feel like there's something about the interaction with other people and having community, having leaders and having mentors that can help me in those seasons, because I don't have to reinvent anything. Might be somebody already figured it out. Tell me what to do and how to do it, and I'll follow those steps. So I think to me, in seasons like that, healthy voices, mentors have helped me in moments like that.
Well, that's such a common theme in this podcast. I think we always come back to brotherhood, community, like relationship, but it once again rings true on this topic as well. Like you're entering into an unknown season, a new season, a season you've never been through or that you don't feel prepared for. That's when you have to lean into people and to relationships, because there are those who have gone before you and done this. Not obviously exactly, but they have an experience that you would benefit from. Mm-hmm. And so are you isolating in those moments and just letting the fear overwhelm you and talking to no one and just internalizing everything? Let me tell you, you're going to have a rough time in that new season. But if in the new season, you're having all those emotions, feelings, but you're going to someone, reading books, listening to podcasts, calling a friend, getting to know someone who's walked through a similar season, then you can go, okay, I actually am afraid. And I tell someone about it and they go, well, you can do this. You got this. I did it. And I was less prepared than you. I had less relationships than you. And I think that's so good that for me, it's always a reminder that every season I still need people. I still need people in the seasons I know and I understand and I've been through over and over again, and in the unknown, new, maybe even feeling unprepared seasons that I still need to make those connections and relationships. I remember when we came down here to plant this church in downtown Sacramento. It was 12 years ago, a couple weeks ago. And I spent the first 6 months just getting to know all the guys in downtown. And I'll be honest, some of the conversations were discouraging because they were discouraged. You know, they're pastoring a church in the heart of the city, downtown. There's a lot of difficulty being in the heart of a city. It's not the suburban context that, a lot of pastors experience, and there's less guys down here. And I was left some of those meetings feeling discouraged, like, dang, like, it doesn't seem like it's going so well for them. How am I going to do this? And then I left other meetings feeling encouraged. Either way, like, some of them needed relationship with me because I was meant to pour into them. And so actually the new season I was walking into, that conversation wasn't even for me. It was actually for them. And I had some of them tell me afterwards, like, man, you were like a breath of fresh air. It was encouraging to see someone with so much faith and joy and hope. And so I think we underestimate the power of connection and relationship, and we need it in every season. And then I was reminded, you brought us to the resting season. And I think that's so important that the guys hear. I don't know, we've probably talked about rest enough, Sabbath enough, and maybe we need a whole episode on that. I don't think we've done it yet, have we?
I don't think so.
I don't think so, but we'll do one. But I mean, I'm thinking about right now, it's winter, and I've been talking about nature a lot, but I'm looking at a tree right out the window. There's no leaves. Like, this tree is completely dormant right now. Why? Well, because God designed it to where plants and trees and crops and land needs a season of rest.
Mm-hmm.
It needs to replenish itself and let the nutrients go deep, and the leaves that fall actually bring nourishment to it so that when spring and summer come, it can flourish. And so I think it's a good reminder as we're talking about new seasons that in every season, there still needs to be rest implemented. And then there are some seasons where more rest is required because it's preparing you for the season of going hard. And so what's been your guys' experience in the heart? Like, man, I'm going 100 miles an hour seasons. And then maybe God's telling me to pull back and rest a little bit season. And for me, that's the hardest season because I'm trying to go. I'm trying to build. I'm trying to accomplish. You know what I mean? So what's been some of the benefits?
I just actually have this. So I probably came out of the most intense season I've had in a long time at the end of last year with some travel, some things with my family, things with my business. And I came into the holidays done. Like I have had seasons where I'm done, but this is one of those where it's stick a fork in me. I'm just out of energy.
Well done.
Like I'm not going to be worth much. And I was recently with a couple friend of ours. They pastor at a church in Atlanta, and we had a chance to go do some holiday together, go do a little travel. And we did a prayer time together, and the brother looks at me and he goes, "Man, I just have this picture of the Lord lifting a yoke off your back. Like he's just taking it off for a season." And I sat there and I went, "Man, that's exactly how I feel right now. I feel like I feel very different in where I'm at." And so I could tell that what was very heavy and hard became very light. And it was, hey, you gotta take it down a notch here. You have to be dormant for a time. You can't go like that. That you're not going to be able to sustain that. And so living through that, part of what I got back from that was I need to embrace that time. I need to embrace the season I'm in and recognize I am in a mode of preparation, rest, replenishment.
That's so good.
Nah, that was really good. I think for me, I have shared this with you. I actually came out of 3 years of a very slow pace, doing ministry at a very slow pace in a city where it didn't require the intensity that maybe right now in this season requires from me, right? And so now that I'm fully involved here, it does feel different. And I think the constant thing that I keep remembering is do not forget the importance of rest. Because those 3 years really taught me a lot. And I'm the same way. I want to go. If I was resting, I feel like I wanted to find something to do so that I don't feel like I'm not doing anything. But the reality is that I was entrusted with those 3 years to rest, to have a slow pace, to enjoy my son, the first 2 years of my son. And now that I'm here, I'm like, okay, now go. But don't forget that you need to pull back a moment so that you can relax, you can rest, you can recuperate from things, you can enjoy life, you can enjoy your son, your family. And so I think the echo from those seasons is do not forget about those moments because those moments are important. And my tendency obviously is not, let's just go, let's not stop. I still have more in me. I don't have time for rest. And so it's a battle still in my own life. And like you said, I think I keep reminding myself that this is important and from other people as well. So yeah, that has been a little bit of my story with rest and this new season as well.
Yeah, I think the rhythms, right, of seasons, which we see God created a rhythm of seasons, is something that we can learn from in our own lives. Now, we started by talking about new seasons and being thrust into new seasons and even unexpected seasons. But ultimately, seasons are about rhythm. Mm-hmm. And I think being reminded even today for me of the rhythm of how I manage my life, my week, my month, and how I manage each season that I'm placed in. Because there are some seasons that we go harder, right? The summer and going into the fall is the harvest season. So you think about farmers and they're working, sun up to sundown, they're gathering and there's a crop, there's a yield, and they have to get it. And if you don't get it in that season, you don't survive. That's what you live off of. That's how you make your money. But then the season comes of rest. And so seeing that even in my day-to-day, my weekly life is something that I'm constantly reminded of. Like, am I building the rhythms into my week where I can sustain a season that maybe is harder work or going faster or going harder? And I think the unfortunate thing is most of us, probably as men, we just go hard all the time, and we don't prioritize our health. We don't prioritize our rest. And then eventually it catches up to us, and we end up where Brandon was, which I've been there many a times. I was the same way going into the holidays. I was like, I'm cooked, you know, we had 2 weeks off, and I was so grateful. Like, God, man, we just went so hard. Like, I need this couple weeks. And then I recovered, and then now we're back at it. It's a new year, and then we're going into Easter for us. It's like, okay, pick it up. Let's go hard again, and then a rest season will come. So I think, though, doing better at building the healthy rhythms into whatever season we're in is, for me, like something I have to think about, as you said. Like, I have to prioritize that.
Yeah, definitely. You know, something interesting. I think many of us, we not doing anything is scary as a man.
Yeah.
Because it exposes a lot of feelings and emotions and brokenness that we don't have to pay attention when we're not resting. And so we have to be okay with being uncomfortable in the space of rest, and being uncomfortable in the space of not being accelerated in doing things. And I know that for us, you know, someone who grew up with a family and a father that works hard and is always doing things, but he never learned how to stop, it's detrimental to the family. And so to me, I'm trying to be okay with being in this space of being uncomfortable, feeling like, oh, I'm not doing anything. And all of these feelings come to surface, and I don't know how to deal with this, and I don't know what to do with what I'm like thinking. And so I think that so many of us, I think the concern is that if I slow down, I have to deal with all of these things that I haven't dealt before. And we have to be okay with that. To go into new seasons, we need to learn how to be okay with those moments as well. Yeah.
I think off of that, I have found, and maybe others can relate, who are listening today, that there are times where we are in a season of planting and growing, but we still think we're in a season that we're off. And when we do that, you're going to have a difficult time finding satisfaction in anything you touch, because you aren't meant to right now. You're not meant to be on the couch indulging in your games. You're not meant to be binge watching something or spending money that, you know, is not the season. And so that point about paying attention, because there are times where we're going to perhaps reluctantly be in a hard season, be in a work season, and you got to pull it up, and you're going to engage, because it won't let up. And I don't know if your experiences are, if God is meant for you to be in a tough one, it gets tougher before it gets easier if you're not paying attention. Yeah. That's been my experience. Yeah. It's like I almost hear God sometimes like, you know, I could do this all day. I could just keep making things around you hard, you know, because I am getting your attention, because we got stuff to do, and, you know, no breaks here on this time. You know, you're on mission. We got something important for you. Let's get to it. Yeah.
Do you mind if I jump into this piece? I think that there's something so important that you mentioned right now. I mean, learning the season and sometimes to pick it up. One of my biggest concerns, being in a circle of people that they were overemphasized rest, which is, I understand the piece of it, but they were killing the drive of men. They were killing the drive of people, the passion to do, to achieve, to accomplish. And I think that is also concerning. Like, we need to learn how to rest, but we also don't want to kill the drive and the passion that we have naturally to accomplish things. And to me, that is concern, and culture and other circles around it. I think that we just need to be very careful in the way we navigate those conversations so that we can have those things, right?
You're reminding me of, I just heard a guy say this about the college football playoffs this year, and that every team that had the bye lost. And when they looked at the schedule, those teams didn't just have a week off. They had like 3 or 4 weeks off. So one of the guys, he was a college football player, he said, your body starts to go down when you're still telling it to come up. It thinks the season's over. So you watch those teams come back, and they all get wiped because they have to stay at that high level. And there's times God's going to call us, you know, to stay at that high level, because we're a body. We're all supposed to be there. And one of us, you know, not being engaged, it affects every one of us.
Yeah.
And so understanding perhaps the connection today between your season is your season. Like we share seasons when we're all in community, and we find ourselves in similar spaces and places because we're engaging at that level. You two are coming into your Easter season, right?
Yep.
It's a big deal in the church to come into Easter season.
Yeah.
Like, this is major harvest time, right?
Yep.
I mean, historically, year over year. And so y'all are like, whatever you were in, it's coming up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think identifying this season you talked about earlier is the most important piece for us to maximize the season. Because you can't maximize the season if you don't know what season you're in. And it's okay to be in a rest season. We're in it right now. The trees aren't blooming. But understand, okay, that season is soon coming to an end. And now what season am I in? And this is something I actually talk to our staff about too. I do a whole teaching on like seasons. There's an expansion season, a resting season, a refueling season. Like there's different seasons and we can lean into it, maximize it. Sometimes there's an expansion season happening in your life in the church. You got to lean into that. That means like, bro, God is giving us a harvest. We got to go even harder. We got to put our hand to the plow and like go for it because he's dumping a harvest into our lap. Are we going to go, well, I just want to rest right now though. He's like, that is not the season. Do you see it? And then when the harvest slows down, we go, okay, God's given us a chance now to recover and rest and refuel, and let me go into that. Let me lean into that. Let me be refreshed. Let me, gear up and fuel up. And so I think for me, I guess we'll give call-ups. You guys can each give a call-up. My call-up to all the men that are watching is that you would just identify the season you're in. And if you can identify it, then you can maximize it.
Mine would be pay attention, especially to the ones where you're called to rest. I think we're all agreeing here that sometimes as a man with a family, with career, with life moving, things on our future mind, things in our present, pay attention for when you need to reset. Because if you don't replenish, you're going to struggle in the next one.
Good. Mine will be reach out for voices that can deposit life, strategy, wisdom, and where you're facing. You don't do life alone. Just praying that God can provide those voices around you.
That's great. Well, here on the Men of Faith podcast, we don't call men out, we call them up. So those are your 3 call-ups for the day. Brandon, always great being with you. And Antonio, thank you for joining us as our guest today. I do want to say to you guys, man, if you're getting a lot out of this, do us a favor. Follow us on Instagram, Men of Faith Pod. We share clips. We drop clips when new episodes drop, which an episode drops every other Friday. And now we're on YouTube as well with this new look, revamped. Mike's behind the camera killing it for us. And so you can watch us on the Project Church YouTube page. So search Project Church SAC, and you can watch all of these as well. So be sure to subscribe and like all the videos. And please share these with anyone that you think would get value from it. Of course, we're on iTunes and on Spotify podcasts. So thanks for being with us. Can you, Antonio, can you say thanks for being on the Men of Faith podcast in Español?
Gracias por estar en este podcast. Lo apreciamos y espero que hayan obtenido algo de esta conversación.
Hey, I just thought that would be cool. All right. Hey, appreciate you guys. Grace and peace. We'll see you next time.